Hey there, and welcome to another daily cinephile vlog. I'm not trying to make this the commonplace area for me. What's going on with my hair right now? It's sticking out like a crazy man like that. But um, no, I'm just sitting here late at night once again, still trying to catch up on some things. But overall, it's been a really good week. I just feel like I'm finally really starting to stick to goals that I've wanted to keep for a very long time. And I keep looking over there like the camera's there. It's actually there because I have the camera tilted a different way. Um, but I feel like I've said this to people before, but like one of my biggest issues, I was saying on the previous vlog that, I have a schedule. I filled it out, but I don't think I fill it out in the best way. And I had an issue with myself as far as taking the advice of others and taking what works from others and tutorials and such and developing a schedule that works just as well as for other people and it possibly might work for me. And adding to that, I think one of the other issues with myself is the fact that a lot of things that maybe work for others don't always necessarily work for me. So maybe that's why I'm always avoiding those kind of, that kind of advice, and seeking it out. But I think, I feel like a lot of that, oh, it doesn't work for me, happened too early in my life. So now I automatically use that as the default for everything. Like, oh, it's not going to work for me, even though I don't think there's enough data to prove that that's actually true. So definitely trying to take in the advice of, the good advice of others, the advice that should be followed, and, taking in the words of others on what works and trying to implement it in my own life. I was watching this TED Talk from this guy. His name is Dr. Cal Newport. I thought it was very interesting. As basically, he has not had social media his entire life, and he's not an age where it would have made sense for him to have social media start, especially when it started to grow big, especially with the Facebook age. I guess being I guess people would say I'm a millennial. I guess that would be the common thing to say. I think people mistakenly call all young people millennials still, but a lot of people who are currently in high school are starting to be associated with Gen Z, but it's like the generations are a little more broader than that. There's a lot of people who are younger than high school who will be considered Gen Z, and there's a lot of people who are out of high school who are already considered Gen Z. From what I've read, Gen Z ends, or it begins in 1995, millennials end in 1995. I've read both. So I was born in 1995. What does that make me? I've joked before that I am the king of Gen Z, so I'll just take that. But I definitely feel like I'm more in line with Gen Z in that most of my adolescence was growing around technology and social media. But even then, not nearly as much as it is nowadays. I feel social media as a bigger presence now than I ever did when I was a teenager. And certainly as a kid. I mean, even as a kid, I don't think social media really existed in the same way. I knew that MySpace existed at a very young age. Going back to like the year 2003, I knew MySpace was a thing, but it was not anything that I knew anybody actually had. And even when my sister started to get into high school, people had it, but it wasn't really being utilized the same way that had been previously. And by then, Facebook took over, and by the time I was in high school, MySpace wasn't even really a thing. And Twitter was already becoming a thing, and it never really picked up, especially not in my hometown, but a lot of my friends that's the thing that we mostly used. But social media definitely has like an impact on me. And it's kind of going back to the fact that I'm just not being honest with myself. It's the honesty of the fact that people can get addicted to social media. And that just seems like such an embarrassing thing to say. Like, to me, it is, it's kind of sad. There's sort of an, older person cynicism towards that I have, where I'm like, even as a kid, I thought it would be embarrassing to be addicted to social media. I say kid, I mean like high schooler. When I was a high schooler, I thought it was like embarrassing for people to be addicted to social media, because at that point, I really wasn't. I really could function on a normal daily basis without social media. But I think the problem is that data was very limited at the time. Wi-Fi was also, I don't even think we got Wi-Fi in our house until 10th grade. And even then, any kind of Wi-Fi that we had was very slow. So like everything was slow, and even the technology was somewhat still slow. Like not fast enough where everything I could possibly think of could be instantly shown right there, right at that moment. Like it took some time, and it definitely didn't help support this, issue with having attention on one thing, My attention lingered differently back then. But now, with things moving so fast and tech moving so fast and so much on social media, and so much to read and so much to catch up on and so many personality types to interact with and so many different stances you have to take, it's become a lot. And I think it becomes a lot for anybody, and it's just hard for me to admit, but it's like, yeah, it's true. I go on social media too much. Not even that I'm really posting that much. I'm really not posting on Twitter a whole lot. I'm really not posting on Facebook a whole lot, but I'm still on it too much. And I'm looking for that reaction. I'm always looking for that reaction. I like conversations on Twitter, and I like conversations on Facebook, and I don't really like the toxicity of it all. And I don't look to start fights or confrontations. But it's, to me, though, I felt that social media is not being utilized in the way that I think is best. And I took inspiration from a friend who recently deleted all social media. They just went for it. And it's something that, I know that people older, and I it's a cynicism that I think I took in, but I shouldn't have, of being like, oh, that's, people would say that's brave, and then people who are cynical about it are like, oh yeah, you're brave for deleting social media. But it's like, when you're that age and, and you're in the era that we are, it kind of is. It's kind of a hard thing to do, I believe. But it made me realize, it's like social media is impacting us in a way that is not good. It is very brave to delete it, and I commend that person for doing so, and I think it's very inspirational. And I know there's people online who kind of make a big stance that they're going to delete social media, and I think they get made fun of for it. Chrissy Teigen comes to mind, because I think the biggest thing is that, they typically come back, and then the next thing is, people probably wouldn't have mocked you so much for leaving to begin with, if you would have just said nothing. But because you made such a big deal of it, no matter what, if you would have came back, people are going to mock you for it because you're not sticking to your word. But it's not a word that anybody needed to know that you were sticking to. And I hate to do that too. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if I could ever fully delete social media. And there's some things that I don't really feel I can technically get rid of. I do like the memory aspect of Facebook. There's a lot of high school memories in there that I kind of like having access to, as far as photos and such. Yeah, Facebook's not really used for sharing photos anymore. I feel like it's just for spreading weird news and stories and like posts from other people that don't really have any factual basis. It's just about reading. Even my sister was talking about this today. It's like, it seems like people are more posting than anything, but not really saying anything anymore. It's not like people are really posting themselves. It's just other people's posts that they're sharing, and then people are fighting in the comments, it seems like. I feel like it was worse a couple years ago, but it still kind of exists now. But it's not doing anything good for me. Social media is not at all. But I like to keep it around for, I have like my own personal business stuff that I have with my personal Facebook page. And like I said, the memories are good. And, with Twitter, it's not even like there's a huge addiction with that. I don't really feel like I'm truly addicted in a sense to any of it, because I can stay away from it. But it definitely is something that is affecting me, like how other people are affected through social media. I think I used the term addiction, but it's kind of like that. But, it's not that I'm really necessarily staying around on Twitter all day, posting and reading, but it's more that I feel that if I am gone from it, then is anybody still reading my stuff? Is anybody still thinking about it? And, how do I keep up to date on other news? How do I keep up to date with these people? And, like I said, I really am not the type to read all day. I get bored of, Twitter eventually. There's not so many things I really care to read about. And same with Facebook. Facebook, I barely was going on to begin with. It started to dwindle a lot. And, there's other things like, TikTok, for instance. It's like, I never even got into it. I was explaining it to my fiance the other day. I'm just like, I can't really get into the whole fact that, you can't skip through the video. So you have to watch from the beginning. And if you miss a joke, you have to like rewatch the video. And I hate that. And it's how the whole algorithm is made. And I think those numbers are highly inflated. I don't think there's that many views for a lot of those TikToks. There's also the term TikTok famous, there's so many people who are TikTok famous, like loads of people, and a lot of people that you've just never heard of. And it's not just being older. It's the fact that there's just too many people. There's just too many people who are famous now. I don't have to be a high schooler to know who these people are, because if you ask the high schoolers, they probably don't even know who all these people are. I'm glad I'm not into that. But I don't want to be completely cynical about social media. I think there are some good aspects to it, but it's just something for me that I needed less of, and I needed less of it as a distraction at all. I needed to find a way to kind of cut it out more and more, and I've slowly been doing that. I got rid of notifications on it. I added time limits to it, and then also yesterday, I'm mentioning it today, but I did do this yesterday, I deleted the apps entirely off of my phone. I still have Instagram because it's like the only way to really post, but that was something that I really didn't go through a whole lot of. I don't follow a lot of people on my personal Instagram account, and as far as my YouTube Instagram, I don't do a lot of following up on that one besides doing some posts. And Snapchat I still have, but again, that's more of just used as like a messaging mechanism for my friends. It's not really something that I have like tons of people on. Because I think there is sort of like a negativity that's associated with social media as far as you feel when you're on it. And I definitely started to feel it. Enough so where I feel like I have to get rid of it. And I'm saying this as someone who's not, like I said, I can't really use the term addiction because it's not really affecting me, I think, as much as other people. And it's certainly not something that, I can't live without of. It's more that at this point there's messaging mechanisms on it, and there's historical stuff on it that I like to go back to, and there's things that I need for business purposes. But for the most part, the only reason I wanted to keep it around was for that, which I can look at very quickly. And then other reasons would be for, the messaging. And I came up with this idea of just like, why don't I just follow up on messages if I get any on Facebook or Twitter, just at the end of the day every day? Because really, holding off on getting back to a message shouldn't be a big deal. I just had this thought that if I don't get back to someone right away, that's bad. But it shouldn't be bad. We shouldn't have to live in that world where you have to have an immediate response to everything. No, you should wait till the end of the day. And it's either going to be in the morning that I check my emails and check any messages I have on the social media, or it's going to be at the end of the day. And right now, I think the end of the day is good. And I don't have to have it on my phone, because a big thing about having Twitter and Facebook itself was just, I always like to clear out the notifications. If there's anything in there, it's like, no, I want it at 0. I don't want a number showing. I always want to clear it out. But I realize, like, I do that with my email too. I'm always constantly cleaning it up. But you realize, like, if you just did this at the end of the day and then consistently look at it all the time to clear one notification or one email, if you just looked at it at the end of the day, cleared everything out all at once, it would save you more time. And would also mean you wouldn't continue to go back to the apps to continuously look at other things that maybe don't pertain to you. Because in the end, the people that you really do care about, there are other ways to reach out to them. And the things that you're posting, people probably don't care as much as you think. Or at least, God, there was a quote I heard, but basically it was this understanding, and I think it came from that Cal Newport TED Talk. It might have came from somewhere else, but basically it was like, all of that stuff that you may care about them, they probably don't nearly care about with you as much. I think that has more to do with just this idea of anxiety in general. It's like, how much are they thinking about you right now? If you do something weird, they're probably going to think about it for 5 minutes, and then they're going to forget about you. So don't worry about the kind of weird things you do around people. Don't let that eat you up through anxiety. And that's the same thing with, like, social media. The things you post doesn't make people think you are any more alive or around than you actually are. The people who truly care will still truly care. They don't need to see you on social media to figure that out. And same goes the other way. You don't need to like all their posts on social media to recognize that they are still a person, that you care about what they're seeing. If there's things to find out, you can find them out a different way. So the whole point is that I'm not deleting social media. It's like I still have it. I can still follow up on it. But I'm just limiting the time I'm doing it. And every year I am doing it more and more. And this is just kind of a major change where it's like, I just don't want the apps at all. I'll just follow up whenever. It's funny because it's worked before. I had Facebook deleted for a long time. And I did get it back eventually, and I mostly got it back just for my YouTube, Facebook page, and the messaging part of it, because that was like the only way I could access anything that goes into the spam folder, which sometimes isn't spam, so it's kind of a long story. But basically, that was the only way to access it. I couldn't access it through the actual Messenger app that's available on the phone. So I got Facebook back. But the time that I deleted it, it definitely changed the way that I would approach Facebook, because I used to read a lot of it and I'd try to keep up with so many things. But then once I deleted it and then I came back to it months later, even though I got it back, I never really picked up in the same way that I had before, where I was on it a lot. My Facebook time dwindled a lot. And that's something I really needed for Twitter as well. I just never deleted Twitter, but now that I have, I suspect that that could probably happen too. So regardless, even if there's, I guess, the term, like, you kind of fall back on what you're saying. I'm not trying to make a stance about this one way or another. I could very well get the apps in the future, but I guess my point is that I've technically tried this before, and it actually does work a substantial amount. It doesn't get rid of social media entirely, and like I said, it's a goal that I can aim for, but I don't know if it'll ever happen, just given for the reasons I said. But I think it's interesting, and I think getting rid of it definitely helps. But just the one thing is like, where's my focus going now? And I think it's really kind of cool to see where my focus will drive next. And if I can actually start to really focus on other things, and fill up my time with other things, even those little pockets of time, even if I didn't really spend too much time on social media, imagine all those little bits and pieces throughout the day adding up throughout the entire year, what I could be spending on instead. So that's the experiment here. So that was kind of a long one, but not really making a stance one way or another. It's more just I'm trying something out for myself. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep having YouTube, obviously, just so I can post some things. Plus, there's a couple good videos on here.